Hello everybody, Calamity here, and today I'm going to do a video I haven't done in a while, and that's going to be a weapon banner review, where we're going to talk about the two 5-star weapons that are currently being featured in the banner right now, which is the Thundering Pulse and the Kagura's Verity, as well as briefly talk about the 4-star weapons as well. I figured I'd do a banner review video since it's been a while since my last one. Also, I'm still working on some other character guides that are still in the oven. I still gotta give them time to get ready before I actually get to recording them. So with that being said, let's get started and talking about the weapons that we have. The first weapon that we're going to talk about is Kagura's Verity. This is going to be Yaimiko's signature weapon, which has a subset of crit damage, and the weapon's effect is called the Kagura Dance of the Sacred Sakura. So you're going to gain the Kagura Dance effect when you're using your elemental skill, causing the elemental skill damage of the character wielding this weapon to increase for 12% for 16 seconds with a maximum of 3 stacks. So that's 36% damage at Refinement 1. Once you get all 3 stacks, you're going to get yet another 12% all elemental damage bonus increase when you possess 3 stacks. So you're going to get 36% increased damage to your skill specifically, and then a 12% damage to everything. That this 12% all elemental damage bonus is going to affect your normal attacks, charge attacks, burst damage, things like that. It's even, of course, going to buff your elemental skill damage, which is going to boost it up to 48% damage boost at max stacks. Now we can see why this is great for Yaimiko, because if you're not familiar with her kit, you didn't try her out yet, Yaimiko has the ability to use her elemental skill 3 times, and it is very much recommended to do so. Now outside of Yaimiko, this weapon is going to be very, very strong for many characters, whether they are a main DPS or a sub DPS. So several characters that can come to mind are Lisa, Nahida, Heizo, and even Ningguang can use this weapon. Now the characters that I just listed, while they may not be able to take advantage of this skill of the weapon's effect for the max stacks, regardless, it is still going to be a 5-star weapon, so it's going to have a very high base attack, and it provides a lot of crit damage. So even if you do end up losing your 50-50 to get, and you get this weapon, let's say you don't have any of the characters I just listed, well, at the very least, you're locked in for a future Catalyst user, whether they're a main or sub DPS. At least you have a 5-star weapon for them. Next up, we have the Thundering Pulse, which also provides crit damage as a substat, seeing a very large pattern here, and it has the Rule of Thunder weapon effect. So it's straight up going to increase your attack by 20%, and then you're going to gain the Might of the Thunder emblem, which has 3 stacks. But to get the stacks, you have to do 3 different requirements. So you can see when you get 3 stacks, you get 40% damage at Refinement 1. Now the different scenarios are as follows. You just have to deal damage with a normal attack, which is very easy to do with any character, right? Just left click on an enemy. The stack will last for 5 seconds. Now use your elemental skill, and that's another stack, so that's 2 right there, and that stack lasts for 10 seconds. And then if your energy is less than 100, you'll gain the 3rd and final stack for that 40% increase in attack damage. When it comes to 5-star bows for main DPS bow characters, I always recommend the Thundering Pulse, as well as the Aqua Simulacra or the Polar Star. I always refer to this as the trifecta of DPS bows, because regardless of who's using this, now like obviously this is Yoimiya's signature weapon, it's tailor-made for her, this is still going to be a great weapon no matter who uses it, right? If it's a main DPS, a sub DPS, it's going to provide that character with a lot of damage. Even if the Thunder emblem buffs are not what you need, like, let's say you're using this on Ganyu, you don't really need the normal attack buff, so you can totally ignore it. It's still going to be a 5-star bow, big base attack, crit damage, and you still get that free 20% increase in your attack. So regardless, it's still a solid bow no matter who you give it to, even if they don't use the normal attack buff. It's going to be a solid weapon no matter what DPS character you give it to. Moving on. Next up, we have the Flute, which is arguably going to be the worst weapon on the banner in my opinion. I don't know why it's here, because, I wouldn't give this to Kirara, even though she's a sword user. We want to give her a support weapon like a Favonius sword. So, if we look at the weapon, it has a subset of attack percentage, and then the weapon's effect is called Chord, where your normal and charge attacks will grant a harmonic on hits, gaining 5 harmonic triggers. The power of music, and deals 100% of your attack damage to surrounding opponents. Harmonics lasts up to 30 seconds, and a maximum of 1 can be gained every 0.5 seconds. This is what I would call a stepping stone weapon, as in like it's a better, like, you know, if you're a new player, this is better than, you know, having nothing, of course, or just relying mainly on 3-star weapons. You could give this to someone like Kaching, Kea. Chi-Chi is also another valid example of a user for this sword. Probably the best user of this sword, to be honest. And, well, eventually you're going to find something better. Either another 4-star option or even a 5-star if you decide to pull on future weapon banners. It's a very meh weapon overall. Next up is the Akuoumaru, and this is a weapon that I've definitely underestimated in the past. It's actually a really solid weapon. The problem is it just doesn't apply to too many characters out there. Let's talk about what it does. So it has a substat of attack percentage as well, just like the Flute. And then it has the Watatsumi Wavewalker effect. So for every point of the entire party's combined maximum energy capacity, the elemental burst damage of the character equipping this weapon is increased by 0.12%. A maximum of 40% elemental burst damage can be achieved this way. So when building a team with a user of this weapon, you just want to pick teammates that have really high burst costs. So that's like a lot of characters in this game have, you know, 80, even the Yaimiko has a 90 energy burst cost, which makes it really, really easy to get the maximum buff you can. There's only 2 characters that come to mind for me when it comes to using this weapon, and the first one's going to be Beidou, and that is because she primarily does her damage from her burst, and just increasing that burst damage in a big way. And she already has an expensive burst cost as well, so she's going to contribute herself to this weapon's effect. You know, you're going to be on your way to getting that 40% increased burst damage, and it's really, really solid there. Another character that also comes to mind is Eula, one of the strongest bursts in the game, if not the strongest ones, for potential nuke damage. So increasing that damage by 40%, you know, her burst is also very expensive as well, so you'll also be on your way to getting this maximum buff. But other than that, it's a really, really solid weapon. I do hope more characters come out in the future, especially those from like Fontaine maybe or something, where we get characters that can definitely utilize this weapon, because I do think it's very underrated and a very strong weapon. Next up, we have the Dragon's Bane, which has been on like every weapon banner ever. I'm going to be honest, I don't know why this weapon is on this current banner, because there's only one polearm user and it's Yunjin, and Yunjin does not want this weapon. It has a substat of elemental mastery, which Geo characters do not want. And even the weapon's effect is going to increase your opponents affected by Hydro or Pyro. They're going to take 20% increased damage, which, again, Yunjin is Geo, so she doesn't even get benefit from the weapon's effect. So do not give this to your Yunjin. However, that being said, this is a solid weapon for any elemental reaction-based team comps. So Hu Tao, very strong for the vaporize damage. Rosaria for melt, or I should say reverse melt damage. This is also going to be really strong if you are using a polearm character in a Hyper Bloom team or Burgeon team. So if you're doing something like Raiden Shogun and you're setting her up for Hyper Blooms, this weapon's actually going to be your best, you know, option just because of the elemental mastery substat. Toma, it's not going to be his best option because of the Contain Crossspear existing, but this is also another solid option if you're building him for Burgeon team comps. But you can honestly slap this on anybody, you know, Zhonling. She's just constantly doing elemental reactions there, but just any elemental reaction based character, and they're the ones that are triggering the reactions, slap on a Dragon's Bane and it's going to be really, really solid. Alright, next up is the Widsith. I would say this is your second best option if you are unable to get Kagura's Verity for your Yaimiko, but this is just a very solid 4-star main DPS or sub DPS catalyst weapon overall. So let's talk about it. It has a stat of crit damage, and it has the debut effect, which is when the character takes the field, they will gain a random theme song for 10 seconds. This can only occur once every 30 seconds. So the 3 buffs that you can get are the recitative, I don't know how to pronounce that properly, is going to increase your attack by 60%. The aria is going to increase all elemental damage by 48%. And the interlude is going to increase your elemental mastery by 240. Now, depending on who you give this to, some of these buffs are definitely going to be more useful than others. So for example, if you slap this on Ningguang, you know, getting that interlude elemental mastery is going to be not so great. And the downside to this weapon is the very, very long cooldown that you cannot fix with refinements. So once you get a song, it's going to be on a 30-second cooldown till you get another song for another buff. But with that being said, this weapon is still going to be a solid option for so many characters. Again, any character that I recommended for the Kagura's Verity can use the Widsith, and in some characters' cases, it might even be better than the Kagura's Verity, depending on which buff you get. And this is the weapon you can easily get to Refinement 5. I just see this weapon so many times on the weapon banner. Yeah, again, my character recommendations are going to be pretty much the same. Yaimiko, Haizo, Wanderer, Mona even, if you want to improve her nuke damage from her burst. Probably Ningguang is like the only character it can be a little iffy on because of, again, the elemental mastery, but still a solid weapon overall. Last but not least is going to be the rest. This is a weapon that is going to be your second best option if you fail to get a Thundering Pulse on the banner. The rest is very, very simple. Attack percentage as a subset, and it's going to increase your normal attack damage by 40%. This is going to be 80% at Refinement 5. And at the downside of decreasing your charge attack damage by 10%. Obviously, the main character that comes to mind is going to be Yoimiya. She does all of her damage from normal attacks, and we don't care about charge attack damage at all since we don't use it. So this is basically no downside. It's a weapon that gives you tons and tons of damage. Outside of Yoimiya, very, very little recommendations I can offer. For example, you can probably slap this on like a Fischl for the machine gun build, but that's a very outdated build that, you know, not everyone does anymore, so it's really hard to recommend it for that. You could also give it to Child, but with Child, we actually want to use charge attacks. You interweave charge attacks and normal attacks when using his dual sword form, so getting a 10% decrease there is actually not that good. In fact, you're going to end up probably changing your combo and doing more normal attacks than charged attacks if you are using the rest. But yeah, very, very good weapon for one character, but if you don't have her outside of it, it's not really that great, to be honest. And that is going to be it for my quick, or at least try to be quick, weapon banner review. The 5-star weapons on this banner are both very, very solid, in my opinion. It doesn't matter, like, you know, which one you're pulling for. If you end up losing your 50-50 and getting the other, you know, that does suck, but hey, you're going to have a solid weapon for, you know, whichever one, because they're both really good, like main DPS or sub DPS weapons, you know, for basically all the current characters that are out right now, and they will definitely be future proof if there's any Fontaine characters, you know, Catalyst bow users that end up being main DPSs, sub DPSs, well, then you have a really solid option for them. The 4-star options here are a mixed bag because we have some really weird options. Again, the Flute is here, despite Kirara being the only sword user in the banner. And she doesn't want the Flute. She wants a Favonius sword or some energy recharge sort of thing. Or maybe even like an elemental mastery sword if you're doing some Dendro stuff with her. Like, the Flute just isn't that good. Dragon's Bane being here, it's a good weapon, but not for Yunjin. So if you pulled Yunjin, you know, the weapon that I recommend for her is a Favonius Lance. Akuoumaru, also a very good weapon. I believe it's because Chung Yun is on the banner as well, but he'll be okay, but you definitely want to pair him up with people or teammates that have really high burst costs to make up for his lack of energy cost on his burst. The Widsith is also a really, really solid weapon overall. Just, again, it's the next best thing after Kagura's Verity, but in some cases it actually ends up being better than Kagura's, depending on the character. Again, there's just so many different characters and situations, and it's really hard to talk about each one and try to keep a video short. And then we have the rest, which has been Yoimiya's best free-to-play option, or at least her best 4-star option if you don't get the Thundering Pulse. The only downside to the rest is that it just doesn't really have that much usage outside of Yoimiya. But you never know, there could be another bow character in the future that we get that ends up utilizing normal attacks as well. But until then, it's usually just a Yoimiya go-to, but other than that, it's a hard pass. So that's my 2 cents on the weapon banner. What do you guys think about the weapons? Are you guys going to pull for either the Kagura's Verity or Thundering Pulse? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have any questions about the weapons themselves or have more character recommendations that you think I missed, please let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as it helps the channel a bunch. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.